everybody. My name is Paul Lambert from the CEO of Plymouth Housing Group. Welcome to Plymouth on First Hill. This opened in 2017 and provides housing for over 80 people who have experienced chronic homelessness. Many of them have critical medical issues coming into us and substance use issues and mental health issues, but that's what our mission is, to bring people in out of homelessness and provide the services they need. We partner with Harvey Hospital in this building, so they're providing medical services on site for the residents. And for almost 40 years, Plymouth Housing has been providing this type of housing with 24-hour supports for people, and with the mission, again, to continue to bring people out of homelessness off our streets. We serve over 1,000 people currently in 14 of our buildings, and many have survived out there for many, many years. We could not do this critical work without partners from across sectors. For instance, this building right here was constructed using funding from the City of Seattle, from King County, the State Housing Trust Fund, and fundraising. But the largest part of the funding for this building was from the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. It was vital. A year ago, we were funded for another building that's going under construction right now. Pictures up there, on Rainier. So we're very excited to be opening that early next year. And in January, we'll be breaking ground on our project at 2nd and Mercer. This is a public site given to us at no charge, thank you, from the City of Seattle. And it benefited from the most recent increase in the tax credit program. Without that increase, the building might not be possible. So we can build this project now, again, because of Senator Cantwell and Congresswoman DelBene's expansion of the program. The expansion was wonderful, it's a wonderful step, but we need more. In order to deal with the homeless crisis and to support our mission and the mission of organizations around the country, we need to get more funding for permanent supportive housing. So I want to thank you all for being here today. We appreciate you coming into our building. I want to now, it's my honor to introduce Mayor Jenny Durkin, who has made affordable housing such a priority for her at every level in this city. And just yesterday, we were in another one of Plymouth's buildings, signing legislation that she signed to increase more resources for both capital and operating for this type of housing. Mayor Durkin.
Paul, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone being here today. I really want to extend a special thank you to Senator Maria Cantwell and Congresswoman Susan DelBene. Their work on this has been tireless. It paid off last year, and we're really hoping it can pay off. The people of Seattle and this region are so fortunate to have this representation that we have in Washington, D.C., the lesser Washington, as I call it. I'm also really honored to be here with two of the other mayors from this region, Mayor Franklin and Mayor Wooders, who are just not only good friends, but every day are thinking about how to make their cities a better place. And we know that the issues facing cities today don't just face Seattle. It's big cities, small cities, Washington State, West Coast, Midwest, East Coast. And we all have the same challenges. So we are really strongly behind this legislation. I can't tell you enough how important this is to the City of Seattle. We were able to announce over $750 million of investments in affordable housing in the first 2 years of my administration. But most of that came because we were able to leverage it through the programs like this. But we're almost tapped out on the benefits we can get under this program. The renewal is absolutely essential for the City of Seattle. And I think it's essential, as I said, you'll hear from the other mayors, but this is so important to all of us in Washington State and across the whole West Coast. Again, I want to thank Senator Cantwell and Congresswoman DelBene for their work. And I also want to say to my fellow mayors, it's great to have so many women strong on the I-5 corridor.
Good morning. What an honor it is to have driven up from south of I-5. Traffic was pretty easy getting into the city this morning.
It always is.
It's an honor to be standing here this morning with these two gentlemen, but these amazing women. You all know I'm partial, but women get things done. And not that men don't, but women get things done. And I do want to thank our Congresswoman for her support and for her help on this. And I also want to thank our Senator Maria Cantwell. Long before Redfin declared Tacoma as the nation's hottest housing market this last May, Tacoma City Council and I have affirmed time and time again, that affordable housing has to be our #1 priority. In Tacoma alone, median apartment rents went up 22% between March 2016 and 2019, nearly a quarter in just 3 years. Housing real estate prices have also increased by 44% during the same time. And it's no wonder we caught the attention of Redfin. This is not a problem impacting only those with limited incomes. We also have issues with middle-class housing, and as prices continue to rise, this is an issue that we have to address. Based on recent numbers from UW-Tacoma, roughly 50% of all renters and homeowners in Tacoma are housing burdened. This means that nearly half of the city's residents are paying more than 30% of their income to keep a roof over their heads. Again, half of our citizens in Tacoma, half of 213,000 people, are paying more than 30% to keep a roof over their heads and their families. While our low-income residents are most vulnerable, affordable housing is increasingly an issue that impacts all of us. Even households making between $50,000 and $75,000 per year, data from our UW partners say that 38% of homeowners and 21% of renters in our city are cost burdened by their housing, even making that much money. And that's why the support that we've got from our Congresswoman and from our Senator is so important. We've got to be able to build more housing, but we've got to make it affordable. It can't just be 80% AMI. That's not affordable for residents who live in our cities. We've got to be able to give incentives to developers so that they can build the kind of housing that helps people at 50% AMI or 30% AMI. And that's why I'm so honored to stand here with mayors and with our representatives saying to our citizens and to this region and the entire United States, asking mayors to stand with us to support this legislation and to make sure that we can move it forward. I'm delighted to be here, and I look forward to implementing this and being able to use this in Tacoma, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce my good friend and mayor, Cassie Franklin.
Thank you. It is truly an honor to join the strong group of leaders in supporting Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act of 2019. Bold action like this is exactly what is needed to increase housing in our communities and ensure housing is attainable for all our families and neighbors. This legislation expands the amount of housing credits available and would build thousands of new affordable housing units throughout the state of Washington and throughout our country. Like Seattle and Tacoma and other cities, Everett too is experiencing tremendous growth. Our population is projected to reach nearly 200,000 by 2050, which is double our size today. Without bold action, we cannot keep up with the demand for housing. Working class families will soon be unable to afford to live in this region anywhere. And those living on a fixed income as well as lower income renters are already struggling to keep a roof over their heads. We need to create more housing options at all levels so that everyone, everywhere, has a home to go to, a home they can afford. Increasing investment in the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act is vital in accomplishing that goal. In Snohomish County alone, the tax credit has financed the development of more than 13,000 units since 1986. It's helped finance numerous housing projects in our city for individuals facing significant challenges. 3 very recent examples include St. Clair's Place, Hopeworks Station, and Compass Health. Combined, these 3 projects add more than 200 units of supportive housing for individuals facing chronic homelessness, as well as veterans, young adults, and many more. In the city of Everett and nationwide, the housing credit is making a real difference for millions of people. Continued growth throughout our region requires continued investment in housing. Cities cannot do this alone. I wish I had $750 million to invest in housing, but we need Congress and the federal government to be our partner in this. I'm very honored and grateful for the leadership of Senator Cantwell and Congresswoman DelBene, and I'm honored to join my fellow mayors up here, as well as everybody here in this room, the nonprofits, Everett Housing Authority, Cocoon House, all of the organizations that I'm familiar with that benefit from this and are able to house people in need. I'm most honored to be up here today with a resident who has benefited from this type of program that you're going to hear from soon. I very much look forward to partnering with other regional leaders and developers to build and sustain affordable places for people to live. Thank you. And now it's my honor to introduce Kim Herman, the Executive Director of Washington State Housing Finance Commission.
Good morning. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and the Commission is responsible for allocating the Affordable Housing Tax Credit according to the needs of our state. What we're here for today goes beyond this city and this state. It's a nationwide movement, a call to Congress to once again protect and expand the Housing Tax Credit program. The credit is our most important and best tool for affordable housing. It puts literally billions of dollars of private money to work for the public good. Here in Washington, it has created or preserved more than 104,000 units of affordable housing over the past 30 years. We all know that that is not enough. With one of the best economies in the nation driving a significant population increase, our state is still behind by about 250,000 rental units to meet the needs of our growing demand of low and moderate income citizens. The housing tax credit is a crucial part of the solution, and that's why Senator Cantwell and Representative DelBene are fighting to increase and improve it. In 2018, thanks to Senator Cantwell's tireless work, Congress agreed to expand the 9% housing credit temporarily by 12.5%. That 12.5% increase meant that last year and again this year, we were able to greenlight new housing projects that otherwise would not have been funded. That's 6 properties that came to us ready to go that are now under construction or about to break ground. They are in rural, suburban, and urban communities statewide. In Redmond, Airway Heights, Ellensburg, Bellingham, Grant County, and one of them that you just heard about is here in downtown Seattle, Plymouth Housing new project at 2nd and Mercer, which will break ground in January thanks to that increase. That's one of the unique strengths of the housing credit. It's flexible. It can be used in almost any size community to serve almost every need for affordable housing. It can build new apartments from the ground up, like the one we're in right now, or it can rehabilitate existing ones, like the historic Naval Barracks at Sandpoint that just reopened on Saturday as Mercy Magnuson Place. It can house people suffering from street homelessness and also working families and seniors. It can and does make local and state dollars go much, much further than they otherwise could. The good news is that we have some of those local and state dollars. Our state legislature and our cities and counties understand the importance of affordable housing and are investing in it. And Washington is experienced and conscientious housing developers. We have both public and private organizations that have housing projects that are ready to go when we have the funding available. And most importantly, we have not just one, but 2 housing champions in Congress. Now all we need is for the rest of the members of the House and Senate to join by co-sponsoring the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. If we can add 3 housing projects a year with more than 150 affordable apartments with just 12.5% increase, imagine what we could do in this state with a 50% increase in the 9% program. A 50% increase would add between 400 and 500 affordable more apartments each year to what we're doing now, all desperately needed by peoples and communities. Across the country, the bill would develop thousands more. We can do it if Congress will step up and join our champions, Senator Cantwell and Representative DelBene. So thank you both for your leadership, and right now I would like to introduce Saritha Simons, who is a resident in one of Plymouth's apartment projects and also a board member on the Plymouth board. Saritha.
Hello, everyone. I'm proud to be here to raise my voice in support of affordable housing. I've been a resident of Plymouth Housing since 2013, and I'm also a board member. I personally know that Plymouth Housing helps to take care of those who can't take care of themselves. My son had a drug-induced psychosis and was homeless, and 9 months after I moved in Plymouth Housing, my son also moved into a Plymouth apartment. Tragedy happens, and it can happen in anyone's life. Anyone can end up homeless on the streets, no place to go, no one to love them, no one to give them a kind word, say hello, or even just acknowledge that they're a person. Housing changes that. In a home, you have community around you. Plymouth Housing is security for me and for many others. I know that if I have a hardship, that there's someone here to help me to find resources and to help me heal from my trauma. If you give people a home, you are more likely to be able to help them. Don't tell them what they need. Find out what it is they need. And they're more likely to, and you're more likely to be able to help them make a change in their life because they're secure. A lot of people don't understand that just because people end up experiencing homelessness doesn't mean that they can't give back. For example, I have a job working for the Organization of Prostitution Survivors. I facilitator for Survivor Circle once a week, and twice a month I co-facilitate an art group for women in King County Jail. Thank you for listening to my story and for your supporting more funding for affordable housing and homelessness. It truly changed lives. Now, it is my honor to introduce Congresswoman Susan DelBene of Washington's 1st District.
There's so many people out there whose lives will be changed if they have affordable housing. And so thank you for your leadership and being a voice. Because that is what makes a difference. I also want to thank everyone here, so many folks who worked so hard to make sure that everyone in our community has a safe and affordable place to call home. And in particular, I want to thank Kim Herman for all the work that he has done for our state to address this critical issue. So thank you. As you know, our nation is facing an affordable housing crisis. In our state, roughly 237,000 households pay more than half their monthly income on rent, which leaves little to nothing left for other expenses like transportation or healthcare or food. Since 2012, housing prices in King County have increased by more than 200%, with the cost of living spiking across our region as well. So in a place like Kirkland, where organizations like Imagine Housing are doing incredible work to provide affordable housing for those who would otherwise struggle to find a place to live, we see this change happening. I've had the opportunity to hear residents' stories firsthand and see how places like Athene and Velocity have created not just a home like Sarita was talking about, but also a sense of community for their residents. So when we talk about affordable housing, it's important to understand that this crisis is being felt across the country, and especially in rural areas. The affordable housing challenges that rural areas face are different than the challenges that a city like Seattle might face. As the cost of housing increases, people are being pushed out further across the region. This makes places like Housing Hopes, Monroe, Family Village so important. It's another affordable housing facility that I've had the benefit of being able to visit in my district, and their services are even more vital. Although housing costs are generally lower in rural communities, incomes tend to be lower and poverty rates are higher. The median income for rural renters is just $21,000, making it extremely difficult to find affordable places to live. Nearly half of rural renters are cost burdened, something Mayor Woodards was talking about, and spend more than 30% of their income on rent. So with so many cost burdened renters, developing new housing projects in rural areas can be more and more financially infeasible unless we make a change. As the challenges in rural communities grow, production is unable to keep up, which is why expanding and strengthening the housing credit is so important. In June, Senator Cantwell and I introduced the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. Senator Cantwell is the myself in the House, and it is bipartisan legislation that will address the clear need for affordable housing across our nation. We've built on the bill from last Congress and added several provisions that address the needs of vulnerable communities. Our bill increases the housing credit by 50%, which translates to nearly 400,000 more affordable housing units over the next 10 years. This provision alone will allow states to address a wider range of housing issues. We added a new title to our legislation this year that focuses on addressing affordable housing challenges in rural communities. We provided a specific basis boost for properties in rural communities, meaning that states could provide up to 30% more in additional housing credit equity for developments in rural areas. Our bill also encourages the development of housing in Native American communities, which are home to some of the most vulnerable rural residents. States would be required to consider the affordable housing needs of tribal members when selecting housing credit developments. Additionally, it will enact a minimum 4% rate to parallel the 9% rate already enacted. This will provide more predictability and flexibility in the marketplace and increase affordable housing production by approximately 66,000 units over the next 10 years. Enacting a minimum 4% rate will get many projects that are currently facing uncertainty across the finish line, including housing for veterans, people with disabilities, and poor families looking for a safe, affordable place to call home. In Washington State alone, our legislation will help build more than 9,700 new affordable housing units over 10 years, in addition to the hundreds of units over 10 years that will be built through the program. It will also provide more than 11,000 jobs and add over $1 billion to Washington State's economy in wages and business income. Affordable housing is an issue that's gone neglected for far too long, but hopefully with the bipartisan support we have and a new leadership in the House of Representatives, we can begin to take the steps necessary to ensure that affordable housing for every single family in this country, that vision is fulfilled. So we've had a tireless leader here in our region, but a leader across the country. And I'm honored to be able to work with her, and I'm also honored to introduce our Senator, Maria Cantwell.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for your leadership on the House Ways and Means Committee. It is so important to have someone on that committee, and I don't know if you remember in the tax debate when people were talking about all the exemptions that people were going to get. She basically just said, are my teachers going to be able to reduce their expenses for the classroom? And it became a viral instant. So I so appreciate her taking on this charge in the House Ways and Means Committee to lead what is going to be a very strong effort by us when we return in September. I want to make a couple of acknowledgments. The Tacoma Housing Authority, Everett Housing Authority, King County Housing Authority, Snohomish County Housing Authority, Mercy House, Imagine Housing, Mary's Place, Downtown Emergency Center, Transitional Resources, Cocoon House, SHAG, Housing Development Consortium, Catholic Community Services of King County, Tacoma, Pierce County Habitat for Humanity, the Low Income Housing Institute, Building Changes in the Enterprise Community Partners, and Seattle Housing Authority. All here today, yay! Housing takes a lot of infrastructure partners, and those are all the partners that we work with on the Affordable Housing Tax Credit. So, first of all, Paul, thank you for allowing us to be here at Plymouth and to be here to talk about why facilities like this make such a change in people's life. But Sarita said it best. You know, that everybody faces a crisis in their life, and sometimes they just need a little security to get back on the right foot. And I can't tell you how important that is. I have seen homeless people standing outside a building in Ballard and pointing up and saying, someday that's going to be my unit. I have met veterans who have found a place to call home so that they could rehabilitate. I have found people who have been previously unemployed but couldn't find work and affordable housing in the same community, but then found it in Vancouver, Washington, and were able to get on with their lives. So we're here today to say that the affordable housing tax credit is the answer to the housing crisis that we face in the United States of America. More than 90% of the affordable housing that gets built with the housing tax credit. So unless we increase the amount of credit available federally, we are not going to be solving this problem, no matter how hard our local communities work. But today we're here, joined by mayors who are also calling on other mayors to try to create the national movement necessary to increase the affordable housing tax credit by 50% when we return to Congress in September. We know that this is so important, so I want to thank Mayor Durkin, Mayor Franklin, and Mayor Woodard for lending their voice to this national effort. I couldn't be more proud of 3 mayors from our region who work every day on the affordable housing crisis. They have been working on everything from making it more efficient to try to solve the problems, but they know what we all know, that Kim knows as well, and that is that supply has not kept pace with demand. We're here to talk about why that crisis exists and what we need to do to make it more affordable, not just in cities like these major metropolitan areas of Puget Sound, but also, as Congresswoman DelBene said, in smaller cities and rural communities that also have affordable housing crisis. The demand for affordable housing continues to grow because of a variety of factors. First, seniors are living longer. Second, baby boomers, which are a bow wave, are reaching retirement and demanding housing. We have our veterans returning from overseas missions, and we have a workforce that continues to demand affordable housing as our economy continues to heat up. So we desperately need to increase supply. I can't say that enough. We desperately need to increase supply. Is a proven, successful, bipartisan tool that has been implemented to help us do that. The affordable housing tax incentive creates an opportunities for developers to build more affordable housing by structuring a program that encourages their investment. Last year, we worked with our colleagues to secure nearly $3 billion in additional affordable housing tax credits, and that was the first increase we had seen in more than a decade. This allowed Washington State, as was talked about by Kim, to build more projects, and it allowed for income averaging too. So it allowed for more workforce housing projects to be built with projects where extremely low income people were also participating. The mix of those projects help us build solutions for more people within our community. This did allow for projects like Second and Mercer to get underway and to allow for more people to leave homelessness, which is obviously a major crisis here in Puget Sound. But last year's victory was not enough. That is why I, along with my colleague in the United States Senate, Senator Young of Indiana, introduced in a bipartisan fashion Senate Bill 1703, and my colleague, Congresswoman DelBene, in a like fashion, bipartisan, with Representative Kenny Marchand from Texas, introduced H.R. 3077, the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Improvement Act of 2019. We mean business. We want to see the 50% increase that we sought 2 years ago. We want to see that 50% increase on top of the $3 billion that we received last year. This is a crisis throughout the United States of America. And 2 years ago, we went to practically every community that would have us to communicate about this crisis. We started off at Patrick's Place here in Seattle, and we went to New York City. We went to communities, big and small, to communicate to the local communities why we needed to increase the affordable housing tax credit. But this 50% increase would help us build more than 550,000 units nationwide, and as you've heard, over 9,700 units here in the state of Washington over the next 10 years. And that is in addition to the 3,500 units that would be built at the same time. So this legislation makes it easier for veterans, for homeless students, and for victims of domestic violence also to participate in the affordable housing tax credit in an easier way than they currently do. First of all, it allows for veteran-only housing projects to be built. That is something that is new. Second, it allows for a new definition of formerly homeless housing students that will allow homeless students to get access to affordable housing in a much quicker rate than they do today. And it also removes restrictions that made it difficult for victims of domestic violence to get into affordable housing. So there are other improvements in the package, and Congresswoman DelBene mentioned some of them as well. But we are not going to stop. When we return in September, there are going to be many discussions about infrastructure, about tax credits expiring, about all of the things that we should be focusing on, and we are going to be very loud and clear. We want to see an increase in the affordable housing tax credit. It also is economic stimulus. It can create over 509,000 jobs and $48 billion in wages over the time period that it would take to build that housing. We believe that it is stimulative in and of itself and helps solve a crisis while we're at it. So we want to make sure that everybody helps us get this done. Last year, I was aided by my colleague, Senator Hatch of Utah, who happened to be the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee and was a very strong advocate, as the state of Utah was. Now we need to build new alliances, and that's why Senator Young and I from Indiana are working, and our two colleagues in the House are working very bipartisan to see if we can get that done. The Senate has always been a little more bipartisan on this issue. We had a tougher challenge in the House last time, and that's why we only got 20% increase, but I'm hoping with the new direction and the fierceful leadership of my colleague that we will be able to secure this 50%. It is about telling our colleagues that the crisis can be solved if we will just put these resources on the table. These mayors, these people in our community will solve the problem, but we need to put the federal investment where it belongs and keep pace with the demand that is being caused by demographic shifts. It is just simple supply and demand, and Congress needs to do its job. Thank you all.